Next question, Julie asks, what makes a body so sensitive to sugar? Could the liver not be functioning correctly? How can you help it detox correctly and work effectively? And I didn't necessarily know what she meant by that, so I wanted to clarify. So I said, hey, Julie, when you say sensitive to sugar, in what way do you mean? And she says, I eat healthy, organic, and if I eat a half a piece of organic sourdough bread, I still have higher sugars. I always eat high protein, 2 eggs, 2 slices of turkey bacon, either half a piece of toast or 6 berries from my yard. And lunch and dinner, I still have veggies and meat and maybe cheese on top of it. If I'm having a burger wrapped in lettuce, my A1C is a 7.2. Doctor thinks it isn't what I eat, but that my liver isn't detoxing or filtering out as it should. I don't want to go on insulin. So I think this is really interesting, and it's a fantastic question, Julie, on your part. I think whenever we can't figure something out, we tend to go too complex. And it's an interesting thought process that we see quite a bit. When we're in a state of chaos and we can't figure something out, it often breeds complexity. We think it has to be a complex solution. We tend to overlook a lot of simple ideas when we're in a state of chaos and not able to quite figure something out. And we're just like, what is going on here? When I hear the word detox, typically that does mean fasting, taking tons of supplements, drinking tons of water, cutting out different food groups, right? And we have to ask ourselves, is that really what we're lacking? Are we lacking a detox? Are we lacking a fasting window? Are we lacking certain supplements? Did we just not cut out enough food groups? And really, if we get down the core of it, that's really not the answer. And how I know it's not the answer is because so many of the clients that come to us ask the same exact question or have been through the same exact approach, wondering, hey, I did all these things, I did the detoxes, and yet my A1C is still higher, it's even higher. So if our A1C is high and we're eating healthy, it's probably not just the food. It's probably other factors that we're not quite attuned to just yet that play just as big of a role in our A1C as much as food or even more than food. So I want to start with that first because food helps us to balance blood sugar. Your eggs, your turkey bacon, your toast, your berries, your vegetables with that fiber. Like, obviously, you have done a great job of being able to balance some of those meals effectively, which is a fantastic start. That balances blood sugar. What reverses high blood sugar and high A1C is the way that we're living our life. And I will beat this into the ground over and over and over again because it's something that comes up over and over and over again because of the marketing, because of the things that we see on social media, because of what we've grown up to understand diabetes to be. We think diabetes is, hey, we're eating too much sugar. Hey, we're lazy. Hey, we need to move more. Hey, we're living on fast food. Even if that's not technically the case, but if we're operating from that perspective, we're always going to be, okay, we got to eat organic. We have to make sure every piece of food and meal is well balanced. We have to make sure that we're particular about all these different meals that we're eating. And yet, when we do those things and we focus on that alone, we can end up in a scenario where we're working very hard, and yet it's not moving the needle with our A1C. And so, Julie, for you, I would encourage you to think more on things outside of just food, not detox, but things outside of just food. And there's a couple areas that we see across the board for clients that are off. Number one is something that we call our body stress response. And I'll talk about this in two different ways. When I say the word stress, what comes to your mind? For many people, it's demands at work, it's their family, it's their kids, it's all the responsibilities that they have as an adult to take care of. But is that actually stress? Stress is the reaction in our body that happens as a result of increased demands without the accompanying support to deal with those demands. And as a result of that imbalance, stress hormones are created within our body, and those can raise blood sugar and A1C, among many other things. So it's not necessarily the external things that are causing the stress. It's a lack of support that our body just doesn't have right now to be able to deal with those demands. And as a result, that stress is really created because of that. So I would refer to external things as more so stressors. They have the ability, the potential to contribute to stress, but are not the thing that ultimately determines that. What determines that is how well we support our bodies from the routines that we live each and every day. For many people of Julie's background, what we see a lot of the times is they are very productive. They are very ambitious. They are very type A. When they recognize a problem with their health or anything else in their life, they work to attack that. Oftentimes, though, at the expense of themselves, because they become so fixated in the area, so stressed about a particular area, that the way that they're living now becomes less beneficial and more stressful, which feeds into the exact reasons why they have the high blood sugar, why they have the high A1C in the first place. For many people, they do not have the adequate support with their routine. It's all about how can I produce? How can I be productive? How can I get things done throughout the day? How can I take care of the demands and the responsibilities that they have, rather than how can I support myself so I get what I need, so that makes me a stronger, more resilient person to handle whatever I have to do, whether that be as a parent, as a caregiver, as somebody that works in 9 to 5, as a business owner, as a homemaker, whatever those roles might be for yourself, even if you're retired. We work with many retired people and we think, oh, we don't have any stress in our lives. Where we tend to see this show up is not necessarily at home, but rather when things pop up that are more demanding, whether that be a doctor's appointment, whether that be a long travel day, whether that be something that happens with our family or our kids. We see that lack of resilience pop up then, primarily because we have less of those stressors just naturally in our life as a byproduct of just being retired. So don't think about it as, oh, it's a byproduct of demands. Think about it as a byproduct of what is the way that you're currently supporting yourself with periods of slowdown, periods of having fun, periods of asking yourself, what do I need to support myself today, just for myself, so that I have the ability to show up as my best self in whatever roles that you have in your current moment. Number 2, we see a lot of circadian rhythm disruption. What does that mean? Circadian rhythm refers to the hormones that your body produces, one, during the daytime, so that you can digest and process and handle your meals and your carbs within those meals. You can feel energized and focused and productive, and at night feel tired, feel sleepy, sleep through the night, sleep without waking up or feeling hungry, sleep and feel restored in the morning time so you're ready for the day. They support the natural functions at the body at the time that you're living, whether that be day or night. When we do not have the right light environment, meaning we're not going outside at the appropriate times, meaning we're on technology like screens or phones or TVs, we're in indoor lights a lot of times, whether that be during the summer or fall or winter or spring months, there's going to be imbalances that are created. And this is also particular with the timing of our meals. So we might be eating healthy, we might be eating balanced, but if these meals aren't timed appropriately, where they're getting our body the nourishment that we need at the appropriate time, then it can mess with these circadian rhythm hormones just like light can. So as a byproduct of both the stress and the circadian rhythm disruption, our body can overproduce carbs and dump those into our bloodstream, which then raises our blood sugar and our A1C. And then we can't handle carbs as well at meal times. Our blood sugar tends to spike up higher. So that's the thing that's often going on in the background. You don't need a detox from that. You need to set up your lifestyle more appropriately so it's actually supporting your body versus causing these big excursions and spikes with your blood sugar and A1C. And then lastly, with nutrition, Julie, we really want to meet our body where it's at. I don't care how healthy something looks like on paper. What I care about is how does it work for your body? your blood sugar, your A1C, your energy, your satisfaction after meals, your cravings, sleep, stress, hormones, like all those pieces. Of course, we don't have to track all at once, but there's going to be several of those that are going to be really, really important that when those are improving, so will other markers of your health, including blood sugar and A1C. I'd really start reflecting on how these meals are supporting what we call that biofeedback, which is the signs, the symptoms that our body is giving us whether something is working or not, and particularly honing in on what is working, because in this state, it's so easy to focus on, oh, my A1C is high, my blood sugar is high, this is not going well. Every time I eat carbs, my blood sugar is spiking up. It's so easy to fix it on that, but we don't want that, right? And so we can't fix it on that, especially if we don't want more of those things, because when we do, that's when we get more of those things. So the more that we can focus on the areas that are actually going well, where maybe we're not seeing as big of a rise. Maybe it's coming down a little bit more after those meals, 10, 20, 30 points. Maybe we're feeling more energized, more satisfied after those meals. Those are important pieces to tune into, because the more that we do, the more positive momentum that we see, that brings less stress because we're less fixated on what's wrong. And then two, it allows us to see what is working for us. And that's the only thing that we have to figure out, Julie, not what works best on paper, what works best for us in our blood sugar in our body. So if we have a high A1C, high blood sugar despite eating healthy, that version of eating healthy is probably not the version that is truly supporting us at the given moment. And you mentioned that you're seeing these rises with the sourdough bread. It's not that carbs are bad or grains are bad, but sourdough bread is one of the more challenging carbs to process just because it requires 100% insulin to be absorbed. What does that mean? When our body consumes food in general, but especially carbs, we need insulin to be able to absorb that. If we have type 2 diabetes, it sounds like in your case, our insulin pathway is disrupted. We have insulin resistance, so that insulin that our body is producing is no longer working well. And so that pathway is, in a sense, under construction. So if you think about it, you taking a summer vacation and traveling down a road, and all of a sudden you hit a construction site where you have to take a detour around it, that's essentially what we're encountering. If we know that this insulin pathway is disrupted, and we know carbs like sourdough bread require 100% insulin in order to be absorbed, it would make sense why we might see some spikes with that, especially when we're not working on those other areas that can help to improve our body's ability to handle those sorts of carbs. When we see that clients cannot handle carbs, especially things like sourdough bread, a lot of times what happens is we have mineral imbalances and deficiencies. These are little nutrients that are crucial for helping your body to handle carbs more appropriately without demanding so much insulin in the process. Because the more insulin that our body is demanding, the more that we're feeding into the insulin resistance that we already have that is contributing to that A1C climbing up and climbing up. So looking at this either just from a diet perspective in terms of what are the variety of foods that we're getting, whether that be protein, fiber, and carbs, or if you want to take it up to the next level, what do our mineral imbalances and deficiencies look like at the lab level? One from blood work, and two from something called the HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis. It shows us what are the minerals present at the cell level where all of the action is taking place that can directly improve our ability to handle carbs. And so looking at both of those, something that we run for clients as well, can really help to improve our body's handling of those carbs so they're not constantly spiking our blood sugar. Last thing here, whenever we can't handle carbs, typically there's a block. And that block for many people is either fat or iron that is located in the wrong areas, particularly the pancreas, where our pancreas can no longer kick out as much insulin as responsive as it needs to be, or because it's located in our liver, for example, going back to your question, Julie, that blocks the liver from working as appropriately, and our liver ends up dumping more and more glucose into our bloodstream when we're not eating, and that can raise our blood sugar in between meals, but also in particular when we're sleeping and we wake up in the morning and we check our blood sugar, it raises that as well. And so for many people, they might say, oh, my blood sugar looks okay during the day, but then when it's coming up over the course of that night when they're sleeping, that's like a third of your day where you're not eating, you're just sleeping. And if we're not looking at that phase of the day, that is a huge portion of that day that can contribute to the reason why our A1C is coming up despite maybe our daytime blood sugars looking okay. So in summary, Julie, I would look at how can you start looking at that lifestyle to improve your body's ability to handle those carbs. Number two, how can you meet your body more where it's at with what you're eating? And number three, how can you get in a variety of different nutrients that can support your body's ability to handle carbs? Now, Julie, if this is something that you'd like some help with to be able to lower your A1C, to be able to do that while eating carbs and improving your body's ability to handle those, please reach out to us. We'd love to see if we can help. This is something that we help clients with all of the time. Every single one of them, they're eating healthy, they're living healthy, they're doing seemingly all of the right things with their activity and their nutrition and their labs and their supplements, but they're still not seeing that blood sugar lowering, that A1C lowering effect that they really want and really deserve with the efforts that they're putting in. So reach out to us. We'd love to set up a conversation to see if it's something that we'd help you with too.